Scientists and medical researchers have for years differed over the exact definition of a pandemic. Is it a pandemic or an epidemic? But one thing everyone agrees on is that the word describes the widespread occurrence of disease in excess of what might normally be expected in a geographical region. Cholera, bubonic plague, smallpox, and influenza were some of the most brutal killers in human history. And outbreaks of these diseases across international borders are properly defined as pandemic, especially smallpox, which throughout history has killed between 300 to 500 million people in its 12,000-year existence. Five. Antonine Plague, 165 AD. Death toll: 5 million. Cause: unknown. Also known as the Plague of Galen, the Antonine Plague was an ancient pandemic that affected Asia Minor, Egypt, Greece, and Italy, and is thought to have been either smallpox or measles, though the true cause is still unknown. This unknown disease was brought back to Rome by soldiers returning from Mesopotamia around 165 AD. Unknowingly, they had spread a disease that would end up killing over 5 million people and decimating the Roman army. 4. Flu pandemic, 1918. Death toll: 20-50 million. Cause: influenza. Between 1918 and 1920, a disturbingly deadly outbreak of influenza tore across the globe, infecting over a third of the world's population and ending the lives of 20-50 million people. Of the 500 million people infected in the 1918 pandemic, the mortality rate was estimated at 10% to 20%, with up to 25 million deaths in the first 25 weeks alone. What separated the 1918 flu pandemic from other influenza outbreaks was the victims, where influenza had always previously only killed juveniles and the elderly or already weakened patients. It had begun striking down hardy and completely healthy young adults, while leaving children and those with weaker immune systems still alive. 3. Plague of Justinian, 541 to 542. Death toll: 25 million. Cause: bubonic plague. Thought to have killed perhaps half the population of Europe, the Plague of Justinian was an outbreak of the bubonic plague that afflicted the Byzantine Empire and Mediterranean port cities, killing up to 25 million people in its year-long reign of terror. Generally regarded as the first recorded incident of the bubonic plague, the Plague of Justinian left its mark on the world, killing up to a quarter of the population of the eastern Mediterranean and devastating the city of Constantinople, where at its height it was killing an estimated 5,000 people per day and eventually resulting in the deaths of 40% of the city's population. 2. HIV/AIDS pandemic, at its peak, 2005 to 2012. Death toll: 36 million. Cause: HIV/AIDS. First identified in the Democratic Republic of the Congo in 1976, HIV/AIDS has truly proven itself as a global pandemic, killing more than 36 million people since 1981. Currently, there are between 31 and 35 million people living with HIV. The vast majority of those are in sub-Saharan Africa, where 5% of the population is infected, roughly 21 million people. As awareness has grown, new treatments have been developed that make HIV far more manageable, and many of those infected go on to lead productive lives. Between 2005 and 2012, the annual global deaths from HIV/AIDS dropped from 2.2 million to 1.6 million. 1. The Black Death, 1346 to 1353. Death toll: 75-200 million. Cause: bubonic plague. From 1346 to 1353, an outbreak of the plague ravaged Europe, Africa, and Asia, with an estimated death toll of between 75 and 200 million people. Thought to have originated in Asia, the plague most likely jumped continents via the fleas living on the rats that so frequently lived aboard merchant ships. Ports, being major urban centers at the time, were the perfect breeding ground for the rats and fleas, and thus the insidious bacterium flourished, devastating 3 continents in its wake. What about COVID-19, the novel coronavirus? Beginning in December 2019, in the region of Wuhan, China, a new, novel, coronavirus began appearing in human beings. It has been named COVID-19, a shortened form of coronavirus disease of 2019. This new virus spreads incredibly quickly between people due to its newness. No one on Earth has immunity to COVID-19 because no one had COVID-19 until 2019. While it was initially seen to be an epidemic in China, the virus spread worldwide within months. The WHO declared COVID-19 a pandemic in March, and by the end of that month, the world saw more than 500,000 people infected and nearly 30,000 deaths. The infection rate in the US and other nations was still spiking. With the coronavirus pandemic, people all over the world have become more aware of the best practices during a pandemic, from careful hand washing to social distancing. Countries across the world declared mandatory stay-at-home measures, closing schools, businesses, and public places. Dozens of companies and many more independent researchers began working on tests, treatments, and vaccines. The push for the human race to survive the pandemic became the primary concern in the world. The outcome of the COVID-19 pandemic is impossible to predict at the time of this writing. But we can learn from pandemics in history to determine our best courses. These are our teachers: the Spanish flu, the AIDS pandemic, and more. What do you think of the video? If you have any questions or doubt, please comment down below. If you haven't done so, hit the like button, subscribe, and share our content. Make sure to keep watching our channel to know when this will be happening. Like, share, subscribe.